Hey guys, it's Crystal from livingwithgastroparesis.com, and it's time for FAQ Friday. So this week we are talking about a topic that I think is an issue for most of us with gastroparesis, and that is stress. I think some people are a little resistant when we start talking about stress in relation to gastroparesis, probably because a lot of us were told initially that our symptoms were due to stress. So we went to the doctor with, our GI complaints, and we're told, it's just stress. You gotta reduce the stress in your life. It'll be fine. Obviously, it wasn't just stress, right? So I think for some of us, when we start talking about stress management in terms of gastroparesis management, it's kind of like, whoa, this isn't just stress. And I think it's important to realize that stress does not cause gastroparesis, but it certainly can have an impact on your ability to manage gastroparesis. And I think that's a really important distinction. You can kind of think of it like the diet. So eating meals that contained fat and fiber didn't cause you to have gastroparesis. But now that you have gastroparesis, you have to reduce the amount of fat and fiber in your meals in order to manage the symptoms. It's the same thing for stress, okay? Stress didn't cause you to have gastroparesis, but now that you have gastroparesis, you have to better manage the stress in your life in order to reduce your gastroparesis symptoms and better manage the gastroparesis overall. So hopefully that distinction makes sense to you. What I want to do in this video is talk about exactly what chronic stress does to our bodies, specifically in terms of digestion. Because I think if you understand the role that stress is playing in your digestion and in the symptoms that you're experiencing, I think that makes it easier to begin really addressing this. And so I just did a 60-minute class about stress and GP for my group program, so there is way more than I can cover in this short video, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys a really good foundation. And then at the end, I'm actually going to invite you to join me for something that I think will be really neat, and it'll be a way that all of us can start to reduce and manage the stress in our lives. Now, certainly, we can't get rid of stress. I mean, that's just completely unrealistic. Stress comes from external things like our family, our jobs, finances. It comes from internal things like our worries and our beliefs. And while we can do something about some of these things, it's impossible to think that we could just eliminate all of this stress from our lives. Certainly, we can do things to better manage the things that are stressing us out. So, for example, most of us who have gastroparesis will say that the most stressful thing in our life is the gastroparesis, right? The better you can manage the gastroparesis, the less stressful it becomes. And so I know you're thinking, well, if I could manage it, I would, that's why it's so stressful. I can't. But what we learn once we start really working on all of the aspects of the gastroparesis management plan is that we have a lot more control than we think. And so that's what, for example, the participants in my programs right now, that's what they're learning, okay? When we start putting together the medical part, the dietary part, nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle, stress management, attitude and coping, you put all of that stuff together and things kind of start to fall into place a little bit more. And the other part of that is getting your questions answered, because when you just have so many questions and you don't really know what's true and you don't really understand exactly what's going on, that in itself is very stressful. So by using resources that will help you to better manage your gastroparesis, that will start to reduce the stress that the gastroparesis is causing. You're never going to get rid of all the stress of living with a chronic illness. I've had gastroparesis for 7.5 years. I obviously, I counsel other people on how to handle it. I know the ins and the outs of the management plan. I would say that my condition is well managed between the gastric neurostimulator and my diet and certainly my lifestyle practices, but it's still stressful. So it's not realistic to think that we can get rid of the stress. What we need to do is kind of counteract the stress, right? So we need to reduce it as much as possible, and that we do by respecting our limitations. A lot of the stress that people with gastroparesis deal with is because they're pushing, right? So they still haven't accepted that whole acceptance thing we talked about, right? They haven't accepted that, right now in this moment they have gastroparesis and they need to live in a way that is conducive to managing their symptoms. So if you're not respecting your limitations, if you're not paying attention to the things that you need to be doing to better manage your symptoms, that's going to create more stress. So we can reduce stress, okay? But then we can also counteract it. And so that's what we're going to talk about at the end, and I'm really excited for that piece. But first I want to explain to you exactly what happens in your body when you get stressed out. So you've probably heard of the fight or flight response. That's kind of the common name for the stress response. And this is a evolutionary, biological process originally to help us survive in life or death situations. So if you're met with, a tiger who wants to eat you for dinner, your fight or flight response kicks in so that you can run away, run for your life. Or if you're in, a fight with somebody and it's a life or death fight, your fight or flight response kicks in so you can fight for your life. So what happens is your sympathetic nervous system takes over, okay? Your parasympathetic nervous system, that's what controls our digestion, that kind of shuts down, okay? So that's your first little hint at why chronic stress might be bad for gastroparesis. But when the sympathetic nervous system takes over as part of the stress response, it releases the stress hormones, okay? So adrenaline and cortisol, those are released into your bloodstream. It increases your heart rate, it increases your blood pressure, it increases your blood sugar. And it does all of these things so that your body has the ability to either fight or to flee for your life, basically, okay? So aside from those things, it also shuts down all unnecessary processes in the body, okay? That includes digestion. Because, if you're running for your life, does it really matter if you're digesting your lunch? Not really, okay? So it shuts down things that are not necessary for survival, and that includes digestion. And so, this was a good thing when we were faced with life and death situations once in a while. Unfortunately, our body cannot differentiate between being stared down by a tiger and, being anxious about our gastroparesis symptoms, or being under a tight deadline at work, or having a really hard course load at school, or overcommitting yourself, okay, and just having too much to do overall. Our body can't differentiate. The stress response is the stress response regardless of the stressor, okay? So what's happening is your body is being flooded by all of these stress hormones that it can't really use, okay? Because we're not running, we're not fighting, we're just sitting there worrying, or whatever the issue may be. So what happens is when you are chronically stressed over time, these hormones are building up in your body, okay? And at the same time, it's reducing those processes that we talked about, how it shuts off unnecessary processes in order to survive. That's happening consistently. And so obviously, if we already have digestive issues, we don't want to be interfering or impairing digestion in any way. So what happens when your body's in the stress response and it kind of shuts down digestion, there's less blood flow to your digestive organs, okay, and your organs can't work as well without blood flow. There's less oxygen, same thing. Your gut produces less digestive enzymes, okay, so the food isn't broken down and absorbed as well. And basically just kind of, things just shut down. And so that's not conducive to dealing with a condition like gastroparesis. And obviously chronic stress, it also leads to other things. It leads to, increased risk of chronic disease. It decreases your metabolism, all kinds of things. It impairs sleep. It impairs immunity. I mean, these are all things that in order to manage gastroparesis, we really need all of these things working. And we need our parasympathetic nervous system to be in control as much as possible. So that's why we need to find a way to reduce stress. Like I said, you need to respect your limitations, put self-care first, whatever you can do to reduce the stress, but we can't get rid of it. So we need to manage it, and we need to kind of counteract it. And we can do that with what's called the relaxation response, okay? And so it's just kind of how it sounds, right? The relaxation response is kind of the flip side of the stress response. And it basically does the opposite of what the stress response does. So it lowers your blood pressure, lowers your blood sugar, lowers your heart rate. It kind of brings everything back to where it's supposed to be and rebalances your nervous system so that your parasympathetic nervous system can, take over, and it can give your digestive tract the best shot it has to do its job. And there are lots of ways that you can kind of bring about this relaxation response, certainly through yoga, tai chi, breathing exercises, different kinds of mindfulness exercises. One in particular that I am going to invite you to join me in is meditation. I think meditation is kind of scary for some people because it just seems like it's hard and it takes a lot of time and it takes a big commitment, and maybe like you don't really understand exactly what it is. But I want you to know that it doesn't have to be any of those things. And I actually want to invite you to join me every day for the next 30 days, starting tomorrow, October 1st, to get in a habit of practicing daily meditation, okay? And it's not going to take a long time. There's a program on the Oprah.com website that I just happened to stumble across. And it was originally posted back in April, because I think April is, stress management month or something like that. But I just came across it and I thought, this is perfect, right? Today is the last day of September. This would be a great thing for all of us to do in October, especially as we start going into the holidays, which can be really stressful, to get in the habit of practicing a stress reduction activity or exercise every single day. And the best part is it's called the 1 moment meditation, and it only takes like 1 or 2 minutes a day. Do you have 1 or 2 minutes a day to better manage your gastroparesis, improve basically your overall health, sleep better? I think so. I think we all do. And so I really, really hope you'll join me. What I'm going to do is this. Every morning on my Facebook page, I'm going to post the exercise of the day from the Oprah.com website. And it'll be a lesson or an exercise that has to do with 1 or 2 minutes of meditation, okay? So I'm going to post the link to that from the Oprah website, and then I'll give you kind of my own feedback based on my experience with the exercise, because I'm going to be doing it every single day right along with you. And if there's something in particular that relates to gastroparesis, certainly I'll, make a comment about that. And then I hope that you'll comment about your experience as well and what you notice from certainly each of the exercises individually, but then as we go through. So come to my Facebook page, facebook.com/livingwithgastroparesis. If you haven't already, you'll see like a like button at the top of the page. It's a little thumbs up and it says like. Click on that, and then every day when I post that exercise, it'll come up in your feed, so you'll see it. So you can follow along for the 30 days, and we'll do it together. And what'll happen is we'll get into the habit of doing this every day. And it sounds like such a small baby step, right? Just a minute or two. But it adds up, and it's something that you can do every single day for you, okay? It's part of your self-care. It's part of managing gastroparesis. So I really, really hope that you'll join me for this. I think it will be a fantastic thing. Like I said, especially going into the holidays, which can be stressful. I think it's going to be a great way to start learning to manage the stress in your life. And, we all have a minute a day. So hopefully this was helpful. If you liked it, click the like button, share it. And like I said, come join me on the Facebook page, facebook.com/livingwithgastroparesis. And we will start this tomorrow. And I will see you next week for another FAQ Friday.